I don't know where you are in your journey right now. Maybe you're in the middle of something hard, something no one else truly understands. Or maybe you've just stood up after falling harder than you ever thought you could. Here's something I've learned. After all the breakdowns, sleepless nights, quiet tears, and mornings where I woke up with nothing but exhaustion in my chest, pain doesn't just leave scars, it leaves changes. Quiet ones, deep ones. You're not who you were before. But not because you're broken, because you're wiser, softer, more alert, and sometimes just tired. This video isn't about romanticizing suffering. It's about recognizing the truth that some of the most powerful traits in you today were forged in your hardest days. If any part of that feels real for you, stay with me. You might just recognize yourself in the next few minutes. And maybe you'll finally see the strength that's been with you all along. No one ever told me that pain doesn't just pass through you. Sometimes it stays, but not always in the ways you'd expect. It doesn't always scream or leave visible wounds. Sometimes it sits quietly, reshaping the way you think, feel, connect, or even breathe. There were parts of me that began to shift after the hard seasons. At first, I thought I was just different or maybe broken. I didn't realize I was growing, quietly, invisibly. There's a term for this in psychology: post-traumatic growth. It's when people, after enduring deep pain or trauma, begin to develop strengths they never had before. Not despite the pain, but because of it. We often talk about trauma as something that breaks us down. But what if we look deeper? What if trauma also builds something in us? Like a heightened empathy, or a stronger sense of purpose, or even just the ability to sit with someone else's pain without running away. The truth is, many of us are walking around carrying not just trauma, but also the quiet strength that came from surviving it. You might be doing it right now, and you might not have even noticed. Looking back, I didn't just walk away from the pain with wounds. I walked away with things I never expected to carry. Some of them I still don't fully understand, but piece by piece, I've started to see what pain quietly planted in me. Let me tell you about some of them. One, a deep, almost unexplainable empathy. I began to notice things I didn't before. The way someone's voice wavers, the way they fake a smile, the way their shoulders sink just a little too far down. I could feel it, not because I was trained to, but because I had been there. It's like your heart develops radar, drawn to the quiet suffering in others. And you just know because you remember what it was like when no one did. To the urge to protect everyone around me. Sometimes, the pain made me want to shield everyone else from feeling it too. I became the problem solver. The listener, the fixer. I thought it was compassion, and it was, but it also became something psychologists call a savior complex, the need to carry what isn't mine. And while that came from a good place, it started to break me down. I had to learn something hard. Caring for others doesn't mean sacrificing myself. Boundaries are not cold, they're kind. 3, a guarded heart. I wanted to help people, but trusting them. That was harder. I smiled. I nodded. But deep down, I kept a wall up. I didn't even notice how high it had grown. According to Judith Herman, one of the leading researchers in trauma recovery, this is a defense mechanism. Being guarded is a way the brain says, let's not get hurt again. And that's okay. Trust can be rebuilt, brick by careful brick, for a need for solitude. After the chaos, I started craving silence, not out of loneliness, but for survival. Solitude became a safe space where I could breathe again. No masks, no noise, just me and whatever was left of me. I stopped seeing it as isolation. It became sacred. 5, a hunger for stability. When life had once been unpredictable and painful, I began to crave routines. Something, anything, that made me feel in control again. Structure became my anchor. I learned grounding techniques like the 5-4-3-2-1 method to bring myself back when anxiety took over, not because I wanted to be rigid, but because stability felt like safety. 6, overthinking and overpreparing. plans, backup plans, contingencies for the contingency. I wasn't just organizing, I was bracing, because when you've lived through unexpected chaos, your mind starts trying to predict the next storm. But the truth is, I don't need to see every future detail to know I'll be okay. I've already survived the impossible. That's proof enough. 7. Inner resilience. You might not see it when you look at me, but it's there, in the way I keep going, in the way I show up when everything in me says not to. Resilience isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like making your bed after crying all night. Sometimes it's just getting up again, even slowly, and that matters more than perfection ever will. 8. Hyperindependence. There was a time I stopped asking for help, not because I didn't need it, but because I didn't trust it. I had learned that depending on people could lead to disappointment, to betrayal, to heartbreak. So I built a world where I only relied on myself. It felt strong, but also heavy. Eventually, I had to ask, what would it feel like to let someone help? Just a little. I'm still learning that. 9. Appreciation for the small moments. After everything, the world felt different. A cup of tea, the sun warming my face, rain tapping gently against the window. These things weren't just nice. They were medicine. When you've lived through darkness, you notice the light more deeply. And you hold it tighter. 10. A fierce sense of justice. Injustice no longer felt like a concept. It felt personal. I couldn't ignore unfairness, not when I'd lived inside it. And so I started standing up for myself, for others. It wasn't about being loud. It was about refusing to be silent when someone else couldn't speak. 11. A search for meaning. The question was why me? Anymore, it became, what can I do with this? I began looking for purpose in my pain. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, when adversity leads to insight, to reflection, to action. I've seen it in people who have been through hell and came back to help others through it. A girl who grew up in poverty starts a clean water initiative. A man who battled depression becomes a therapist. A survivor becomes a guide. The pain becomes fuel, and purpose becomes light. Closing line for part 3. I didn't choose the pain, but I get to choose what it leaves behind, and sometimes, what it leaves is power, disguised as scars. Most healing is quiet. It lives in the small choices we make every day. The habits that hold us when things fall apart again. Here are some that changed everything for me. 1. Writing things down. I used to keep everything inside, but when I started journaling, something shifted. Putting my thoughts on paper gave them shape. It made them less loud in my head. I didn't need to write something profound, just real. Even one sentence a day helped me feel like I was slowly stitching myself back together. 2. Practicing stillness. I resisted this at first. Sitting with myself felt uncomfortable, but I realized if I always ran from silence, I'd never hear what my heart was trying to say. So I started with just 5 minutes a day. No music, no phone, just breathing. It didn't fix everything, but it helped me return to myself. 3. Using grounding techniques. When anxiety took over, I felt like I was disappearing. One thing that helped was the 5-4-3-2-1 method. 5 things I could see, 4 things I could touch, 3 things I could hear, 2 things I could smell, 1 thing I could taste. It sounds simple, but it brought me back to the present, to my body, to safety. 4. Saying no without guilt. There was a time when I couldn't say no. I said yes to everyone, even when I was falling apart inside. Until I realized every yes to them was a no to me. Now I protect my peace. I remind myself boundaries are not rejection. They are protection for myself, for my healing. 5. Moving my body with kindness. Not to punish it, not to control it, but to reconnect with it. Stretching, walking, dancing alone in my room. It reminded me that I was still here, still alive, still worthy of care. 6. Talking to someone safe. There's power in being heard. Not fixed, not judged, just heard, whether it was a therapist, a friend, or a journal. I needed to get the pain outside of me, even if all I said was, I'm tired. That was enough to start the release. 7. Noticing the good on purpose. My brain was wired to look for danger, so I had to retrain it to see the good. At the end of each day, I wrote down 3 things that made me feel okay: a smile, a meal, a quiet moment. Healing began to feel possible when I stopped only seeing the pain. 8. Letting myself rest. Rest used to feel like laziness, but I learned that exhaustion is not weakness, it's information. Sometimes the most revolutionary thing I could do was sleep, or sit in the sun, or do absolutely nothing without apology. 9. Letting go of perfection. Healing isn't linear. I had setbacks. I had days where I felt like I was back at square one, but I kept going, and that's what mattered. Progress didn't mean being perfect. It meant showing up imperfectly with love for myself. 10. Choosing softness. The world had hardened me. But I didn't want to stay hardened, so I chose to soften, to still believe in kindness, to still trust slowly, to still love even when it scared me, because healing isn't about never getting hurt again. It's about remembering that I am still capable of love, joy, and connection despite everything. Healing doesn't have to be loud to be real. It doesn't have to be visible to matter. Sometimes healing is just one small decision, one new habit, one moment of self-kindness at a time. It doesn't mean you're damaged. It means you've been through something, and you're still here, still standing, still learning, still growing. You may not always see your own strength, but I promise you, it's there in the way you care for others, in the way you carry yourself through hard days, in the way you keep choosing to keep going. Pain changed you, yes, but it didn't ruin you. It refined you. You are not broken. You are becoming someone more aware, more present, more alive, more human. Remember this. Grace isn't something reserved for a few. It belongs to everyone, and that includes you. You are worthy of peace, of strength, of healing, of everything beautiful this life has to offer. So now I ask you, what traits have you discovered in yourself because of what you've endured? Comment below, share your story, let someone else know they're not alone. And if you found this video helpful, please like it, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to High Day Psych for more stories like this, because your healing matters, and so do you.